The American Revolution was a dramatic moment in history. In 1776, 13 American colonies decided to fight for their independence from Great Britain. This was a bold move. Great Britain was a global superpower with a strong army and navy. The colonists knew they faced a difficult fight, but they were determined to be free from British rule. The colonists had many reasons to declare independence. They were upset about British taxes and laws. They believed these laws were unfair. They wanted to govern themselves and make their own decisions. The Declaration of Independence stated these grievances clearly. It was a powerful message to the world about the colonists' desire for freedom. The decision to declare independence was not easy. Many colonists were afraid to challenge Great Britain's might, but the desire for liberty and self-determination was strong. The colonists were willing to fight for their beliefs. They were determined to create a new nation based on freedom and democracy. The American colonists faced a daunting task in their fight for independence. They were outmatched by the British in almost every way. The British Army was larger, better trained, and better equipped. The British Navy ruled the seas, making it difficult for the colonists to get supplies. The colonists also lacked a unified government and a strong central leadership in the early days of the war. Each colony had its own interests and militias. This made it difficult to coordinate a united war effort. Financially, the colonies were at a disadvantage. They lacked the resources to finance a long war against a wealthy empire. The Continental Congress struggled to raise funds and provide for the Continental Army. Despite these challenges, the colonists had something the British did not: an unwavering belief in their cause. They were fighting for their homes, their families, and their freedom. This determination would prove to be a decisive factor in the war. One of the most important factors in the American victory was the leadership of George Washington. Washington was a respected Virginia planter and soldier. He was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army in 1775. Washington faced a difficult task. He had to turn a ragtag group of volunteers into a disciplined fighting force. He had to keep their spirits up through defeats, harsh winters, and shortages of food and supplies. Washington's leadership was essential. He was a skilled military strategist, leading the Continental Army to several key victories. But more importantly, he was a symbol of inspiration and unity for the American people. His determination and perseverance gave the colonists hope. He kept the army together through the darkest days of the war. The American Revolution was not just a military conflict, it was a movement fueled by the spirit of a people determined to be free. Ordinary citizens from all walks of life played a vital role in the fight for independence. Farmers left their fields to join the army, women took over farm work, made clothes for the soldiers, and even took up arms. Children helped out however they could. People endured hardships and made sacrifices for the sake of their new nation. This spirit of unity and sacrifice was evident in the Continental Army. Soldiers endured harsh conditions, low pay, and the constant threat of disease, yet they continued to fight because they believed in their cause. They were willing to give their lives for the dream of a free and independent America. Section 5. Friends across the sea. France lends a decisive hand. The American colonists could not have won the war without help from foreign allies. France, in particular, played a crucial role. France had been watching the conflict with Great Britain closely. They saw an opportunity to weaken their longtime rival. After the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, France decided to officially join the war on the side of the colonists. They provided much-needed financial aid, weapons, and supplies. The French Navy also proved to be a decisive factor. They challenged British naval superiority, winning key battles that prevented the British from supplying their troops. The French alliance was a turning point in the war, tilting the balance in favor of the Americans. Section 6. British blunders, misjudgments, and missed opportunities. While the American colonists showed resilience and strategic acumen, the British made a number of mistakes that ultimately contributed to their defeat. One of the biggest errors was their misjudgment of the colonists' resolve. The British leadership, including King George III, believed that the colonists were a divided and disorganized rabble. They underestimated the colonists' determination, military capabilities, and the depth of their commitment to independence. The British also made strategic errors in their military campaigns. They often relied on traditional European tactics that were ill-suited to the American wilderness. They failed to adapt to the guerrilla warfare tactics employed by the colonists. The vastness of the American colonies also proved to be a challenge for the British, who struggled to control the countryside and subdue the population. Section 7. Home turf advantage. Knowing the land, winning the war. Fighting on their home ground gave the American colonists a significant advantage. They knew the terrain, the climate, and the best ways to move through the countryside. They used this knowledge to their advantage, employing guerrilla tactics that frustrated the British. The colonists were also fighting for their homes and families, which gave them an extra incentive to fight hard. They were familiar with the local populations, which provided them with intelligence, shelter, and supplies. The British, on the other hand, were fighting in a foreign land. They were unfamiliar with the terrain, the climate, and the local populations. This made it difficult for them to move troops and supplies, gather intelligence, and gain the support of the local people. Section 8. The tide turns, key battles and American momentum. Throughout the war, the Continental Army won several key battles that turned the tide in their favor. The Battle of Saratoga in 1777 was a decisive victory that convinced France to enter the war on the side of the Americans. The Battle of Yorktown in 1781 was the final major battle of the war. With the help of the French Navy, Washington trapped the British Army under General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. After a 3-week siege, Cornwallis surrendered. The victory at Yorktown effectively ended the major fighting in the war. It showed the world that the American colonists were a formidable force capable of defeating a global power like Great Britain.